We are taking a trip back in history to see how Independence Day used to be celebrated at 9.
And happy second half of 2026, friends. It is July 1st, and we are kicking off the 7th month of the year with those fun facts.
I can hardly wait.
I know.
Fireworks on 2 nights. It's a popular way to celebrate the 4th these days, but how did people celebrate America's birthday centuries ago? Well, we will learn more with celebrity historian Raffi Andonian when Great Day comes back.
As this weekend, we all prepare to celebrate our country's 250th birthday. Have you ever wondered how Americans of the previous 250 years celebrated the 4th of July? Here to tell us all about the celebrations across centuries is our very festive, fun, and animated celebrity historian, Raffi Andonian. You're dressed up. I'm getting in the mood,
In my Team USA jersey for the Bosnian match today. What better place to be in St. Louis, rooting for Team USA. I know we have the largest Bosnian population outside of Bosnia, but I'm going for Team USA for the 4th, of course.
Of course, yes. So let's jump right in. How did past generations celebrate the 4th of July?
Well, the way they celebrated would put our soccer parties tonight to shame. I'm telling you the crazy things. They had grease pig races, and they had grease pole climbing and all kinds of horse races. This is the grandkids of the founders we're talking about when the revolution was kind of becoming a memory in the 1820s, 1830s, 1840s. They, at some point, there's an account of a bonfire with 4,000 whiskey barrels being burned. Ooh. It was so crazy that a group starts to say we need to have sane and safe parties for the 4th of July. There's a quote in the Chicago newspaper that says, that has a poem that's wishful, that says, we'll have all of our eyes after the 4th of July, because this is how risky it was. It got to the home with George Washington. The guy's dead. They start visiting him at the tomb, you know, coming off boats out the Potomac River. They start to party and have drinks and dance, so much so over the years that George Washington's nephew bans them from the property because it got that out of hand. And how could we talk about Washington without talking about the presidency? So over at the White House, there were crazy parties also. Zachary Taylor, president in 1850 on the 4th of July, because of those parties at the White House, dies 5 days later because of what he consumed in the feasting and the parties and the parades at the White House. This is how wild stuff was in that generation. Now let's go another generation forward to the centennial in 1876. The United States celebrates the centennial for 7 months. How do you like that for a celebration?
I love it.
One of the guys was General Sherman, big Civil War hero who's the Army commander at the time, who says that we should have a 13, who orders a 13-gun salute at all Army bases across the country. And Sherman, of course, is buried right here in St. Louis. So let's tie that story into St. Louis. At that time, the way St. Louis is going to celebrate, like many Midwestern cities, is a huge picnic, many speeches. And in those speeches, there are going to be toasts, at least 13 of them, public toasts. So people are publicly drinking and doing these sorts of things. It started small, of course, you know, just after Louisiana Purchase. At first, there's a reading of the Declaration to 50 people, just up the river from here, a little north of St. Louis. But it grows into this huge gathering over time. Major, major celebration. We're talking about the 19th century. As we go into a 20th century, 1904 World's Fair, we did a 4th of July parade through the World's Fair as well, here in St. Louis.
I love the St. Louis connections. We're going to take you back even further, though, to 1776, our founding fathers. How did they celebrate? Here's
what's funny about it. So even though we had these crazy celebrations about their grandkids and their great-grandkids and so on, the founders actually didn't even agree and realize about the 4th of July in the year after the Revolution. So let's start in the beginning. In 1776, before the Declaration of Independence, on June 4th, which happens to be King George III's birthday, many of the rebels, the patriots, the colonists, actually start to do funerals for King George, when in the past that was the day to celebrate the king. So they flipped the holiday. After the 4th of July, on 1776, on July 8th, when there's a public reading of the Declaration, they go down and tear down the King George statue, decapitate them, and parade them all over the place. But the founders in the next year didn't actually realize which day that they had declared independence. And so when someone reminded them, they went to a tavern, like you might see here, and celebrated at the tavern with a massive meal, all kinds of meats, vegetables, fruits, all kinds of things, as is very common back then, doing many toasts. It was common to do 13 toasts, which later comes up again, and you do them to various figures, and then there's voluntary toasts beyond that as well. And the final thing here to note is Thomas Jefferson did a huge White House party later when he became president, which was the first time you have a party at the White House, and he was so excited. He's a shy guy, he's a writer, but he went on to say that, an eyewitness said about him with the citizens all over the White House and the lawn, saying Mr. Jefferson was promiscuously socializing with the citizens. They use the term promiscuously because he was so excited.
There you have it. You can find this segment on firstalert4.com/greatday following the show.
Breathe, Raffi. Breathe.